All right, what's good, y'all? So, World Relays going down tomorrow and Sunday, 2 days in Botswana at the capital. First time that we're seeing World Relays and major championships, from the World Championships in this capacity on the continent of Africa, which is a relatively big deal. I mean, even though it's World Relays, it's a big moment for Africa, Southern Africa specifically as well. We've seen the rise of African sprinters from, of course, South Africa, Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, all that, that entire region. So it's a big deal. Now, today I want to talk about two specific topics. This isn't a World Relays preview, but I want to speak about Elaine Thompson-Herah because she did, I guess in theory, her first, more full interview. She did an interview after she ran her first 60 on her return, but she's now spoken a little bit more that I've gathered a little bit more from this. And then after that, I do want to talk about Botswana with what Letsile Tebogo said about the 4x1 and his country's goals moving forward. So first off, with Elaine Thompson-Herah. So in the press conference this morning, she was part of the panel, and they asked her a couple different things, and she gave a few pieces of insight as it relates to her injuries, her recovery, her feeling pain, and then also her goals in terms of actually competing at the Commonwealth Games. So we'll start off with the Commonwealth Games, and then we'll talk about her injuries, because there was a few things I kind of picked up on as it relates to her injuries and what she was talking about pain that I think there's some context there. But first off with Commonwealth Games, because this is actually very helpful. I'll probably edit this in so it's full screen. I'm a little bit lazy right now if you don't, hear this, but yeah.
Not that bad. So would you say that you are more closer to the Elaine at the Rio Olympics form or closer to the Tokyo Olympics Elaine form?
That's a good one. I'm feeling good. I don't think I'm where I want to be yet. I'm being patient with myself. It's an off season for us, not a championship, which we have Commonwealth. But for me, particularly, I'm just taking it step by step, not rushing anything, not applying no pressure. Once the pain is gone, Elaine is capable of doing anything. I ran a couple of days ago. It felt great. Feel like I haven't done anything pretty much. And I think I have more, a lot more. And I'm just unleashing the beast one by one, day by day. Once I'm healthy, it's going to be an exciting season. So I'm just looking forward to what Elaine can do, what more she have. I have a lot more. And I'm just not rushing anything. I'm just being patient, humble, hungry, of course. I'm just using the season as a stepping stone, a recovery, a fun one. And just go out there, have fun, run some races, get some medals, of course. Defend my title in Commonwealth, of course, because I'm the defending champion. So I am just looking forward to everything and what God has in store. Whatever table he's preparing is a good one preparing. Whatever door needs to be open, they're soon to be open. So I'm just looking forward.
Okay, so we'll hold there for a second. So this, I think, is important. So at least Elaine here, she confirms that she is looking to defend her title. I think that's a key word there at the Commonwealth Games this year. Now, if you remember, she's the 2022 Commonwealth Games champion in both the 100 and the 200, right? And now we have the Commonwealth Games going down in August this year. So I like this confirmation of her looking to defend her gold medal at the Commonwealth Games this year. I like this because we are still a little bit, in a gray area as it relates to other top athletes, confirming, and I say top athletes from Jamaica, right? Because you have a lot of other athletes from around the world, whether it's, from Canada, Trinidad and Tobago, Bahamas, Kenya, like a lot of athletes, South Africa have confirmed they're going to Commonwealth Games, but Jamaicans are still a little questionable. Kashane Thompson, Oblique Seville, Sharika Jackson, Clayton Twins. Like we don't know 100% who's going to Commonwealth Games or who is, targeting it. I think Brian Lavelle might've said he's interested, or maybe Oblique said he's interested, but this, at least from Elaine, is confirmation. Which I like. But I say very specifically title because, as I noted, she is the defending 100 and 200, Commonwealth Games champion. So we don't know if she's only focusing in on the 100, which seems more likely, at least at a minimum, she's probably going for a 100-meter title, or if she's also going to go for the double. Now, we've seen her run 10.92 seconds this year. She's run 22.6 seconds in the 200. We don't know if she's actually going to target the 200 this year or if it's just 100. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. But at least at a minimum, it seems like we got confirmation Elaine Thompson-Herah is targeting the Commonwealth Games, almost certainly to try and defend her 100-meter title, potentially, might add on that 200, but we'll see. Now, the second clip that I do want to talk about with Elaine, well, actually two parts to it. She is speaking about no longer having pain. So she dives into, the injury issues that she had a little bit and her return from injury. So she speaks a little bit about, again, not having any more pain and being able to come back pain-free. But there's a few key things that are interesting in the way that she's speaking about being pain-free that I found pretty interesting. So here is the clip for Elaine Thompson-Herah.
Nice having me in Botswana. I'm happy to be here. It's been a rough one mentally, but I've overcome that. It's always track and field is my passion, it's my love. And because I love it so much, I think that recovery part of it is easy. Not having pain is also a good feeling, of course. And, to be back on the track, I ran 260s, 100 meter, just to feel where I'm at, no pain. So being here in Botswana to compete with the world relays, I think I'm pretty excited. My team, we're ready, we're excited, ready to have fun, of course, and just to go there and just have fun.
Okay, so and then there's another clip I do want to talk about where she speaks on again her coming back from 10.54. But why this is pretty interesting is because she mentioned running with no pain on 2 occasions in this at least one clip. This is interesting because it's essentially giving the impression that previously she was forcing herself to run and compete through some pain, right? I think there's a difference between in training you're dealing with pain and you step back versus okay, I'm going out there to compete and I'm actually dealing with significant amount of pain, but I'm still actually competing. And if y'all remember, this definitely occurred at minimum during 2 stages in her career. Now, we know that she's dealt with injuries at multiple stages, but most recently, if you remember, in 2022, she actually re-signed with she signed with Puma, right? She left Nike and was with Puma starting in 2022. And I forget if it was right before World Champs or right after, but she had done an interview. I think it might have been on Asafa Powell's podcast potentially. But regardless, she did an interview speaking about how essentially it was a requirement. Like I needed to go to the World Championships to win a medal and all these things because it's like that's part of your contract. That's like, that's how you kind of maintain your status as an athlete, with these shoe companies. And I don't think that's anything new, but that gave some insight into Elaine Thompson-Herah dealing with injuries, dealing with setbacks coming off that Olympic year, now forcing herself to go to the World Championships despite, dealing with some injuries at that point. Now, of course, we saw her get a bronze medal in the 100 behind Shelly and Sharika, but speaks to her kind of running through pain. And we saw what happened, in the subsequent years. 2023 dealt with injuries. She did do well at the end of the year, but then, took 2 full years off essentially. The other time I did think about also was 2017. That was her first year really dealing with some significant injuries and some setbacks. She did get to the World Champs, and I think she finished 5th place there. But one of the most notable moments, I think, for most people is remembering, people, if you remember at the time, but at the London Diamond League back then, she ran the 100 meters and she ran like sub 11 in like flats or trainers or something along those lines. And she actually spoke about, dealing with that Achilles issue and dealing with some pain. So again, this kind of does speak to how Elaine was maybe forcing herself to compete through injuries and through pain without taking a step back, to, give herself the time to heal and rest. Because obviously, again, this doesn't just specifically focus on Elaine in a sense, but like all athletes have to deal with the obligations and the requirements from your sponsor, shoe sponsor, to perform at the championships, because that's what actually matters most. Winning medals, making finals, et cetera, all that stuff. So that's one interesting thing. Last clip from Elaine relates to her 10.54, which she ran in 2021. This also was a little interesting and kind of highlights how she was pushing her body to the limit. So let me just bring this up here.
So coming back from injury, it has been challenging mentally, physically. But for me, I'm always living myself as a tough cookie. I've never been to a therapy or whatever that thing is. I don't believe in it, because I'm my own therapy. And I do believe in God. I have a supportive team who believes in me, and I do believe in myself. After an 10.54, there's been a challenge, running that high. It's, take a toll on my body, I must say. The Achilles was not giving me anything, and pretty much not competing last year, I think it has done a lot to me. Probably I needed that rest, that away from the sport, to clear myself and to come back. So using this season for me is like a rebuilding process, not to rush or to, think too much. I have expectations, but this season I just doing step by step, running a couple races just to see where I'm at, using this relay tool just to get in a couple races. And for me, using races to get me ready, because I can train until next year, but I will not know where I'm at. Getting races, I can know where I'm at. And I think coming here, running with these younger folks, carrying the baton around tomorrow will be, a good plan for us to see where we had at this season. It's just, as I said, it's just a fun for me to coming out here in Botswana, not to just do relay, but to just have fun with the team as well, qualify for the World Championship, which is next year. So this year for me is just all about having fun and just finding back the lane.
Okay, so couple things in this clip now, and I'll probably go in order a little bit. But first thing, she mentioned that running 10 point, and I'll let y'all go wild in the comments about the mental health. I know that's like blown up on Twitter, but running 10.54 seconds and coming back from that, her speaking about, how tough it was, her Achilles not giving her anything. That to me just highlights how taking your body to another level, and I guess this does go to, what Otto was saying, whether you agree with him or not, but just the idea that taking your body to another level that few people in history have ever gone to, in this case, obviously only Elaine and Flojo have run, Elaine 10.54, Flojo 10.49. That is crazy work on the body. This connects directly, in my opinion, to when we think of Tyson Gay running 9.68 at the Olympic trials in 2008, and he gets injured, right? You have Johan Blake, he runs 9.69 in 2012, and then 2013, he's injured. You have Andre de Grasse, he ran a windy 9.6 in 2017, and he gets injured, right? Obviously, there's nuance to all these different situations, but there's the aspect of pushing your body to a limit that few humans on Earth have been able to reach, and what that does to your body eventually in terms of the injuries and the setbacks. And Elaine doubly, in the sense that she's already dealt with major injuries, in this case, her Achilles, and now getting back in 2021, running 10.54, running 10.6 a couple times, that is going to have a major impact on your body. So that's why it's really interesting. She's really acknowledging that as well. She understands it. I think many people do understand it, but I also think it's sometimes hard for many people to truly acknowledge, and people will just say, oh, she can get back to that. It's not easy, right? Now, connecting off that, she did speak about how taking 2025 off was a really, really important part of her recovery, because it allowed her to not only rest her body, but also rest her mind in a sense. And this, to me, what I'm kind of taking away is that it seems like she could have or wanted to come back in 2025. So in the idea that maybe she was already fully healthy by the end of 2024 or top of 2025. I know that was reported or at least spoken about in different capacities, but hearing it from Elaine, that's what I truly appreciate, which is why I'm, kind of mentioning it. But it seems like potentially she could have come back in 2025, but there was no need to, right? Taking that time really did allow her to fully, come back physically and mentally, and connecting back to what I said about running with no pain. If she came back in 2025, there potentially would have been that pressure to qualify for the World Championships, to push your body to another, level that it may not have been ready for. So taking that time away, I think, was very, very important. The other thing as well is, because of how she's speaking about running through 2026 and kind of like checking in to see where her body is at and where her fitness is at and, her competitive level is at. She could have trained through the year, but she needs to compete to see where she's at. This maybe also gives me some level of indication that skipping a decent amount of 2026 was possibly on the table as well. Right. Obviously, we don't know exactly what her coach is thinking or what she, what their plans were. But that seems like it could have been on the table as well, because this is a quote unquote off year. Maybe she was like, yo, let me at least try to compete. I'll go for the Commonwealth Games to try and defend my title, but no pressure, because the ultimate goal is 2027 and 2028. And if we don't actually compete here, we won't know where our body is at leading into those really important championships. Right. So again, those are some. Obviously, on the surface, it's great. She's going for Commonwealth Games. She's running with no pain. She took 2025 off. But those are the kind of things that I personally picked up on that I found interesting as it relates to Elaine Thompson-Herah. So we'll see what happens. I know there were some interesting questions here, like, can they break the world record in the 4x1? All this stuff. Is she back to 10.5? It's like, I don't know, man. Like, it is what it is. But that's Elaine Thompson-Herah. The next one I do want to quickly talk about is Letsile Tebogo and Botswana. And he is going to be competing as part of the 4x1. And this was actually pretty interesting because there were a couple questions around, what he would be running at these championships. And he's entered specifically in the 4x1 and not the 4x4. So he addresses this. Let's talk about it in two capacities here.
You were entered in the 4x1 in the entries. Is that what you're going to run this weekend, or are you also going to run the 4x4?
I mean, the 4x4 pool is a really hectic one. As of yet, we still have to have a meeting with the team coaches, whether I'm in or I'm out. But primarily the main focus is the 4x1 and try and introduce it into championships. As for now, the main target, the main goal is to make it into the final, and then we'll see how the final goes. That's the main target for the 4x1 because it's a new team, it's a new youngsters that I really believe in, that they can just take the baiting around and make it into the final.
So that's the first part. Again, I like this because he's speaking about how, they still need to discuss this a little bit. I'm going to play a second clip in a second. But how he really wants to get, again, he says the youngsters, even though he's like super young, it's crazy. But he really wants to get the 4x1 going because they didn't have the opportunity to qualify previously. There was in 2024, and I'm going to bring this up here, they actually ran the 4x1 at the African Games, Botswana, when I say they, but they unfortunately did not get a mark that was officially that could be used to qualify for the World Relays in 2025. So they had this mark in the 4x1, 38.7, but it was all hand timed. So they couldn't use this mark, from my understanding, to not only qualify for the Olympics or the World Relays, but then even also qualify for the World Relays in 2025. And I don't think they've ever run a 4x1 in the years, since then. They do have another 4x1 mark, I think, like from last year at some point, but to qualify for this year. But overall, they just couldn't get to the World Champs last year or the Olympics in 2024. So now that's what Letsile is kind of speaking about as it relates to, okay, this is our chance to actually qualify to get to the World Championships next year. The 4x4 is good. Like, they're set. They got a whole host of guys in the 400s that they don't even need Letsile, right? So that's one aspect. Let me just play the second clip, and then I'll kind of summarize what I'm really thinking as it relates to Letsile and like his ultimate goals to a degree.
And then answering the 4x4 question, I said I'm going to be doing the 4x1. 4x4 will consider depending how the team is going to be. For now, I'm still out. And then also climbing up the ranks, I believe it was unfortunate that 2024 we didn't, or 2025 we didn't make it into the World Relays in Guangzhou, but that has been solved, and now we are here. Everybody's excited, and with the defending champions are South Africa, 4x4. So we'll see. We'll give them a very, very tough push behind, and then we'll also challenge South Africa in the 4x1. We'll be there with Akani. I know how to solve him very quickly. So yeah.
And yeah, so I think I was getting a little confused, but like when he's speaking about 2025 World Relays last year, obviously they were there in the 4x4, but the whole issue with like Botswana, the federation and all these kind of things, so they pulled out. It is what it is. But now they are here. Now, what's interesting is on this 4x1, you have a pretty strong group of guys from Botswana. Now, I'm not saying they're going to win medals at the World Champs or the Olympics, but what I see this as is Letsile almost building the foundation for the future of Botswana. Because Botswana, from my understanding, from what I looked, they've never qualified for the Olympics or World Championships in the 4x1 in history. I couldn't find one. If someone knows, go in the comments, let me know. But you have a couple different guys who are all they are all extremely young, and they're all growing and developing. Obviously, Letsile is here, right? You have Faisal. Apologize for these pronunciations. Y'all got to correct me. You also have Monaiwa. You have Masasa. You have Mandoze. And then you have Lobotalamang. Again, apologize for the pronunciations. But essentially, you have a strong group of guys right now in the 100. And Letsile, I feel like, is taking advantage of these young, growing, fast guys who are all competitive right now to make sure he can, again, set that foundation so that not only can they qualify for the World Champs in 2027 and the Olympics in 2028, but when we get to 5-10 years down the line, there's a generation of, athletes from Botswana who are just consistently coming up and up and up because they've seen, these models of fast athletes, and they've seen something that they can almost aspire to be. Oh, I can run the 400. I can run the 100. I can run the 200 because these guys are really putting their best foot forward. Look at the men's 100 meters for Botswana. Out of the top, I think it's the top 11 guys in history for Botswana right now. Let me just make this a little bit so you can read it a little bit better. But out of the top 11 guys in Botswana right now, most of them are running the 100, are running currently and are young, right? You have Letsile Tebogo, right? You have Kebena Chippy, who just ran this 9.89. You have Motibi, right? Relatively, he's maybe a little bit older on the generation, but regardless, you have Fazel, right? You have Mandoze, right? Makwala, obviously, he's retired at this point. Lobotalamang, right? He's here. You have Masasa. You have Tebe. Obviously, he's from the previous generation. So just going through, just highlighting how most of the top guys from Botswana are all extremely young. Looking at the top 13 all time, right? There's like 3 guys who are no longer competing, right? So 10 of the guys are active. You have 5 of these guys, 6 of these guys are on the 4x1. They are building up a strong base and a strong foundation for the future of Botswana, athletics from Botswana. And again, this isn't just about right now. This is about inspiring another generation so that Botswana becomes a quasi powerhouse to a degree, right? So that's what I really kind of take away from Letsile focusing in on the 4x1. All due respect, I think for the most part, World Relays is simply a qualification event. I know that it is a championships, but even by the way that World Athletics has kind of shifted the World Relays to simply become a qualification event has taken away the idea of it being a championship, whether we like it or not, right? That's why you don't see the United States. Check out Coach Rob. He just did a video on why, the top Jamaicans and then the top Americans aren't competing. Like, that's why some of them are not competing, because they realize this is just qualification. There isn't anything specifically on the line. Yes, Letsile is talking about, I know how to get South Africa, but like, if they lose, the goal is still the world champs and the Olympic Games. So that I think takes a little bit of the luster away from it. But that's why I also think this is building the foundation from Botswana's realm of, the future of sprinting for the country. So all of that is just some interesting thoughts from the press conference. Link in the description for the full press conference. Again, I'll probably do maybe if some special things happen, I may do an initial recap, from day one. I don't know, but probably just a overall recap on like Monday or something along those lines. But yeah, let me know what you think. Appreciate y'all.